people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. We now know more about the upcoming Alicia Baumgardner versus Delphine Persoon fight, the card, the undercard, I should say, and who's going to be on it. Apparently, it's going to be an all-female affair. Brought to you by the Global Combat Collective that beat out Matchroom at the purse bid for the show. You're going to see Isabel Vasquez take on Crystal Van Wyck, Yvonne Flores versus Katarina Lenner, Rosalinda Rodriguez versus Amy Nayard. Now, most of these fighters, God bless them, the casual observer, the casual boxing fan, hell, even the hardcore one, is not going to be familiar with most of these fighters, most of these girls. And remember that this is intended to go head-to-head with the Michaela Mayer versus Sandy Ryan fight. Two fighters that most boxing fans are familiar with. And on the undercard, you're going to have Puerto Rico's own Xander Zayas. You're going to have Brooklyn's own Shushu Carrington. On ESPN, a major platform that most boxing fans are used to going to for their boxing, as opposed to Brinks TV that most fight fans are not familiar with. They're just not. So on the face of it, it looks like the Mayer versus Ryan fight will likely get more eyes on it than the Baumgardner versus Persoon fight. They're both great fights. They both are. But one is happening on a major platform and one isn't. And those are just the breaks. It would have been better for Alicia and the exposure of this fight had Matchroom won the purse bid for the show and not Global Combat Collective. I feel like as a result of the Global Combat Collective having won the purse bid, not only did the fight take longer to make, but it's happening on a platform that most boxing fans don't know, with a lot of boxers on the undercard that most boxing fans don't know. It would have been better off as being part of a Matchroom show, and Matchroom likely would have got it done in a more timely fashion. But I guess that Matchroom didn't want to overpay, didn't want to break the bank to win the rights for this fight. The Global Combat Collective was willing to pay a little more, and thus they won the rights to it. I think the winning bid was about $500,000. So Alicia is getting a bit more money than she would have based on what Matchroom was willing to put up, but it comes at the expense of time. It's costed her a lot of time because Matchroom could have got this done in a jiffy with more familiar faces on the undercard than these. It's been over a year since Alicia Baumgardner's last fight, the Christina Linardatu rematch in the summer of last year. Based on this, it looks like she'll only fight once this year, once. They're saying that this will be her final fight of her existing Matchroom deal. I really don't know how that works because this is not a Matchroom show, but that's the story, that after this she'll be free to go somewhere else if she wants to go somewhere else, but where? Top Rank maybe? That would be ideal. Alicia is an American fighter and Top Rank is an American-based promotional outfit, though I don't know that Top Rank will offer up any more money than what Matchroom was paying her. They might. I'm not saying that they won't. I'm saying I don't know. There's Frank Warren, there's Queensberry. When Chantel Cameron left Matchroom, where did she go? She went to Queensberry. Now I understand that Queensberry is a UK-based promotional outfit, but they just signed Brandon Lee, an American-based fighter based out of America that's been fighting under the PBC banner up until recently. He already made his Queensberry Promotions debut, so you figure that if Queensberry was willing to sign Brandon Lee, they might be willing to sign Alicia Baumgardner. Though if they do, what options do they have for her? Not that many. Not many that I can think of. If she were to go to Top Rank, a Michaela Mayer rematch, that's an option, though I feel like she would have to move up in weight for that. I don't think Michaela's dropping back down to 130. Alicia might have to move up. I have Michaela winning the Sandy Ryan fight, so you figure that if Michaela wins, she becomes WBO champion. That's a belt that her and Alicia can fight for in the not-so-distant future, provided that Michaela beats Sandy and Alicia beats Delphine. I think she's going to. In spite of Delphine being one of this division's most fearsome punchers and just one of the most fearsome and persistent punchers in the sport, she's 39 years old. Something's gotta give. At some point, Father Time catches up. Stylistically, it's still an intriguing fight because where Delphine Persoon likes to throw punches in bunches, Alicia's more about finesse, accuracy. She's more of a sharpshooter than a Gatling gun. Though because Delphine is so persistent within a round, in a fight, it's gonna be an action fight because Delphine is gonna make it an action fight. That could be to her detriment. That could leave her open for a lot of hard counters from Alicia. But those are the breaks. Because Delphine doesn't stand much chance of winning a boxing match against Alicia. She has to try to take it to her, take it to the champion, and try to wear her out. At least historically, Delphine has shown better cardio, a better engine than Alicia. How do you know? Because she throws more punches per round than Alicia and fights at a faster pace. In tandem with Alicia's build, that she's a more muscular fighter than Delphine Persoon. That many more muscles eat up that much more oxygen. So there is a question as to who's gonna tire out first. The older fighter in Delphine or the more muscular fighter in Alicia? I like Alicia to win. I like Alicia to win a points decision, though I don't rule out a knockout. I think Delphine is still a formidable fighter, even at this age. But I also think Alicia's been itching to get back out there and itching to make a statement, remind people who she is and what she can do, and she's gonna use this as an opportunity. So I like Alicia to win. And super middleweight news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now. Source, facing UFC, Canelo boxing fight draws $17 million gate mid six-figure pay-per-view sales. This number's a bit less than the 750,000 pay-per-view buys that the fight was rumored to have done. It's 650,000, but in this market, that's still a great number. Canelo Alvarez's fight Saturday drew a gate of around 17 million and about 650,000 pay-per-view unit sales, a source said. As the boxer continues to draw big commercial numbers, even when his opponent isn't a fellow superstar, the Mexican boxer fought rising Puerto Rican-American fighter Edgar Berlanga at the T-Mobile Arena, with PBC and TGB Promotions saying a sold-out crowd of 20,312 people were on hand to watch the card, which ended with Alvarez winning over the previously unbeaten Berlanga by decision. Berlanga was 22-0 heading into the fight versus Alvarez, the super middleweight belt holder who is now 61-2-2. Belt holder, don't you mean champion? The event was held on Mexican Independence Day weekend, a holiday that's important both in Mexico and with Mexican Americans, and one which the UFC also capitalized on around its fight card down the strip at the Sphere on the same night. On top of Alvarez, the card featured several big names in boxing such as Caleb Plant, Stephen Fulton, and Danny Garcia. The card was a pay-per-view aired by PBC on Prime. MGM Resorts International is part owner of the T-Mobile Arena, and the MGM Grand had a massive banner stretched across the upper floors of the hotel, promoting the fight with a picture of Alvarez and the words Viva Mexico, underscoring how many hotel rooms the fighter helps to book when he competes. Bruce Binko, a consultant for PBC, told SBJ on Friday, after the weigh-ins outside the T-Mobile Arena, Canelo has always been a big ticket seller. He has a loyal, dedicated fan base, and they always buy tickets fast. And we're seeing that on this one as well. We didn't drop the ticket prices down. We held the line, and we're going to be very happy with what we end up doing. On pay-per-view, I'm not in the prediction business, but we're all feeling very confident. TGB Promotions owner Tom Brown said there was no issue with hosting a major boxing fight with Alvarez at the same time that the UFC was hosting its Noche de UFC event at the Sphere, adding that it was an economically positive situation for the city of Las Vegas. Brown said, "One of the things we've always done, and it's been PBC founder Al Heyman's way from the beginning, is we just stay in our lane, and we have people coming at us in our industry, in the beginning in boxing, but we just kept moving forward, and that's what we've done here. We're not worried about what's going on down the street. We wish them nothing but the best and success also. It's two different fan bases, and it's just great for the city of Las Vegas. You know the difference between Mexican Independence Day and Cinco de Mayo. This is really a major holiday in Mexico for Mexican fans. So this is really special to Canelo and his fans. Some in boxing had questioned Alvarez's choice of Berlanga as his opponent, but Brown and Binko were effusive in their praise of Berlanga, saying he and his managerial team had done everything they had asked to promote the fight. The $17 million gate for Alvarez versus Berlanga compares to what the UFC said was a $22 million gate for its card at the Sphere.
Now for the context.
While the UFC gate did a little bit more, you have to remember that was backed by Turkey LL Sheikh, whereas Canelo did what Canelo did off his own name, off his fan base alone.
There was nothing so titillating on that undercard that helped to sell the show. What sold the show was Canelo.
650,000 pay-per-view buys against an opponent that Canelo Alvarez is widely favored to beat in what some would have described as a mismatch, and that's how it played out. So he sold 650,000 pay-per-view buys with a mismatch?
What would he sell with Terence Crawford? What would he sell with David Benavidez or Conor McGregor? As those are some of the names in the hat for Canelo's next fight.
Though as you can imagine, Canelo Alvarez having no shortage of detractors, some will not be happy to hear the event was a success. I came across a tweet from a guy who goes by the name Easy Raw Brunch Boxing. Canelo is an exhibition fighter. That was a trash product. I wish it failed 100%.
Sorry to tell you, but it didn't. It was a success, a big one.
You will buy everything Canelo gives you because you think he's cute.
That might apply to some of Canelo's female fans. Some of the male ones too, maybe. I don't know.
Canelo is the worst face of boxing the sport has ever had. He's going out sad.
No, you're just mad you were wrong. You were wrong again. You were hoping the event bombed, and it didn't. It was a success, proving that no matter how much people like you criticize him, you don't matter.
The fighters you do like, what are they doing at the box office? What are they doing commercially? Not what Canelo's doing, adequately surmised by another Twitter account that goes by the name Everything Boxing, which stated, "Boxing Twitter doesn't equal real life. Just because they don't like the matchup on Twitter doesn't mean it's not the right fight."
I've said this before and I'll say it here again. Not every boxing fan, not every paying customer is on Twitter arguing online for hours on end.
Complaining. Not every customer. And what you see on Twitter, furthermore, what you see online is not always an adequate representation of what's going on in the real world. There's a whole world out there outside of your phone.
Go on Twitter, you get a couple of followers, you start doing spaces, and before you know it, you've got a big head. You think you're a lot more important, your opinions are a lot more important than they actually are.
See, the Easy Raw guy is the kind of guy who loves Gervonta Davis, and he loves what they're doing with Gervonta Davis. Too bad the rest of the world doesn't share in that opinion, because if they did, well, he'd be the one outselling Canelo. As it stands, it's the other way around.
You're just a member of a vocal minority that in the end doesn't really make a dent, whose opinions don't really matter.
Not sorry. Ahead of this weekend's fight, I guesstimated that it might do between 6 and 7 on the premise that Canelo has a baseline of around 4 or 5, and with the added Puerto Rican fans, that might push it to somewhere in between 6 and 7. Here we are.
Right again.
You guys still don't like it. Nobody's stupid for the things they don't know. You're stupid for the things you don't want to know. You don't want to learn.
That's what makes you stupid.
Encouraging figures. Good news for Canelo Alvarez's future prospects, because if this is what he does with a guy that everybody knows he's going to beat, just imagine what kind of numbers he could do with a more intriguing fight, like, say, a Crawford fight. A fight that some people, not all, though some, think Crawford might win.
I don't agree with them, but I'm not against Terence pursuing it either.
I'm a fan of both fighters. Yes, it's entirely possible that you can be a fan of Canelo and a fan of Terence Crawford, and I'm not against Terence pursuing it. I don't think he's going to win, but it's his funeral.
It's his peril.
If he wants it, let him have it. If Canelo does, and he affords Terence that opportunity, you did around 650,000 with Edgar, you might do 800,000 with Terence. You might do $1 million with David Benavidez, and you might do well over $1 million with Conor McGregor. As these are the names in the hat, at least 3 of them, for Canelo Alvarez's next fight.
So all that stuff about the UFC show eating Canelo's show, that didn't happen.
The UFC's gate is reported to have done a little more than Canelo's, 22 million to 17 million, but remember, that's with Turkey LL Sheik's backing, his blessing. Canelo didn't need any added bells or whistles to sell his show, and we still don't know what it did at the box office. We don't know what it did on pay-per-view.
Those numbers aren't out yet. If they are, I haven't seen them.
So it's what I always told you. Those are two different combat sports that cater to two different sets of fans. So one event can't cannibalize the other. Whoever bought the UFC show was always going to buy the UFC show, and whoever bought the boxing match was always going to buy the boxing match. They didn't steal fans from each other.
It doesn't work like that.
And it didn't work out how Oscar De La Hoya said it would work out. He talked all this smack about how the event was going to bomb, how Canelo was going to flop, and he didn't flop. He went as far as saying that he would be in attendance for the UFC show. That didn't happen either. He didn't go. He wasn't welcome after Dana White made it clear that he's got nothing against Canelo Alvarez, he's got no axe to grind with him, but he does have an axe to grind with Oscar, and he ain't giving him no comps. He's not going to give him no free tickets, so he better come in with Turkey.
He didn't come in at all.
Likely because he felt stupid, like many Canelo Alvarez detractors are feeling stupid right now. The more they hate on this guy, the more success he seems to have. The more they hate him for it.
Even more.
The fighters they try to put on a pedestal, like Gervonta Davis, like David Benavidez, they're not doing the numbers that Canelo Alvarez is doing. Hell, David Benavidez isn't even headlining his own shows anymore. He's an undercard fighter now on Gervonta Davis's undercards.
Further indication that everything you see online and everything a content creator says is not an adequate reflection of what's going on in the real world, because in the real world, if David were selling, he'd be headlining his own shows.
You don't stick a guy on somebody's undercard that can move 250 or 350,000 pay-per-view units. You don't stick a guy like that on an undercard. You wouldn't leave that money on the table.
If he could move it.
The problem is, with David, he can't move it. So the best you can do for him is use him as a decorative item on somebody else's undercard to try to spruce it up.
And these are the guys you see put on a pedestal online, which doesn't align with what's going on in real life.
This manufactured hype you see in this digital environment counts for very little when it's time to put your money where your mouth is.
Enough people aren't doing that.
They're just arguing, picking fights online for hours on end, as if that's going to get David anywhere.
Still hasn't.
For a fighter with a career as decorated as Canelo Alvarez's, well over 60 fights, a professional boxer since age 15, whatever he's doing at this stage in his career, it's just extra credit because his Hall of Fame ticket to Canastota is already punched.
You might think he still has something to prove.
You might get all swept up in the current flavor of the month, whoever it is. But for Canelo and his fans,
he did all the heavy lifting.
If he makes time for whatever fighter it is you're high on, whatever fighter you like, it's his prerogative. And if he doesn't, he doesn't.